Well, here's a request that came in through email. It's referring to one of the posts I did in my weekly newsletters. By the way, if you want those, go to diannemize.com and click on subscribe to newsletter or get notifications of Dianne, something like that. Anyway, so the post was about the way I think about color in terms of chords instead of notes. So this person says, referring to your advice that color is a chord of 3 notes, would you please explain? That just doesn't make sense to me. Well, here comes the explanation. Well, it's probably just the way my head works when I look at color. It could have something to do with my background in music. But when I hear people talking about a painting and they talk about this color note, and what these color notes do, it doesn't make sense in my head. So I thought I would share my perception of color, because when I see color, pieces of color wherever, I always see them in 3 parts. My head always registers that the 3 parts of color. What is the hue? What is the value? What is the saturation? And it just sort of like comes together like that, hue, value, saturation. And they merge together, those 3 parts. And those 3 parts to me seem more like a chord for a single color than they do a note. Now, I want to do just a little bit of a demonstration here to show you how that works. And I'm saying this is the way my head works. It makes more sense. And I've found for my students it seems to make a lot of sense too. But I'm not saying this is the way it should be. I'm just saying when I see a color, it seems like a chord. It doesn't seem like a note. As we know, a chord in music is made up of 2 or more notes. And since color is made up of 3, it feels like a chord to me. So here's the way it works. And I'll show you what I see is the logic behind this. So say if I just take this color right here, let's just move the color wheel for the moment, put it right here. And so say if I put that color right there, right, I don't have any other colors to compare it with. And so my eye registers that as blue, and it feels a little bit like it's blue leaning towards violet a little bit, but we don't have to be so specific. But my eye also reads it as a middle value blue, and it reads it as a relatively high saturation of blue. So my eye reads it as a chord. It's a blue of middle value and a relatively high saturation. That just makes sense to me. Now, I'll show you a difference. Now I'm just going to desaturate that blue just a hair. Going to keep it at that same value, but just desaturate it just a hair. And we desaturate. I found that desaturation it works better if I use the complement of the color. So I've desaturated that blue just a little bit. And so now if I see those 2 blues together, it seems like a chord of blue that changes here to being still blue, but now the desaturation has changed. So this blue is relatively high in saturation, middle value, the hue blue. This is hue blue, middle value, low saturation. So that's the way my head reads it. Now, we can take that just a little bit further. We can change it now in a value direction. This piece right here, I can just change in a value direction and put that right here. Now that's still, I did change the saturation just a little bit too. Well, when I look at that, I see that as lighter than this. If I see those 3 together, So that's a middle, you might call it a high middle value, a middle value that leans towards light. So now when I see that blue, I still registered it's blue hue. It's a middle value that's on the light side, and it's partially desaturated. So now let's go another direction. So I'll go over on the other side. And by the way, this is my value line, which is another one of my idiosyncrasies. I love having colors pre-mixed in values in line with each other, all the colors in line with each other of the same value. It just helps me organize the whole process of painting. So let's see what we have right here. All right, what do I see there? Hue blue, dark, not the darkest dark, but a dark blue, and somewhat saturated. So see, that's the way I see color. So now let's go for another hue, and I can show you more about this. I'll tell you what, let's do this in another way, what I'm doing right here. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start again. I'm just going to get that a little bit dark. I'm going to start again with that middle value blue. And I'm going to put it right here. Now there's a middle value blue. It's a little bit desaturated. It's a blue hue, middle value, very slightly desaturated. Now I'm going to gradate that and show you how my thinking sees a gradation. So we'll just put a lighter version right here and we'll gradate that in. So we'll gradate this into that, and get that a little lighter. Get it even a little lighter. So there's a lighter version right there. Now if I see a passage, whoops, the brush did that. I didn't mean for the brush to do that. Now we've got kind of a smooth gradation. Now, if I see that, I'm seeing the hue blue gradating. The hue blue gradating, the value is going from, as it's gradating in value. The hue blue is gradating in value from a middle value to a lighter. It's slightly desaturated all the way through. So that takes care of hue blue, gradating in value, slightly desaturated all the way through. So let's try something else here. So I'll go in again with the middle value. I'll soft the brush so I can get it. And we will do another kind of gradation. So I'll start here with the middle value. Then I'm going to let that middle value, keep it as middle value, and let that middle value slightly gradate in saturation. So now the character of the saturation changes. Hue remains the same. The character of saturation changes. The value remains the same. And you might, if you were thinking in terms of music here, I didn't mean to get that light in there, you might think of that as something that might happen to us in a string instrument, where the string instrument would change by sliding the fingers on the string. So the change in tone goes in that direction. So here the hue blue stays hue blue all the way through. It gradates in saturation, and the value stays the same all the way through. So that way of working with color, to me, just makes a whole lot of sense. Now there's another thing that we can do. Let's gradate some hue. We're going to keep the value the same. By the way, this is an exercise that I think could be really valuable for learning how to read what the hues and values and saturations all do and ways to control them. A lot of people think that when you desaturate a color, you make it darker. Yes, it will get darker if you desaturate it with a darker color. But our perception, because the more neutralized or desaturated colors don't receive as much light as that's a one way of saying or explaining it, not receiving as much. They're receiving the light, but they're not absorbing or reflecting it in the same way as the highly saturated colors. So sometimes we have a perception that it's going dark, but when we squint at it, we see that it's all the same value. All right, so now let's try gradating in just keeping the value the same. We're gonna keep the let's see, what are we gonna do with saturation here? We'll keep the saturation high this time. So we'll get no, we won't keep saturation. We're gonna gradate the saturation. All right, I'll make up my mind in just a minute. So I'm going to begin here with the complement I'm using. And so I'll show you how I figured this one. Um, the blue I'm using is blue. This is ultramarine blue, and it's on the color wheel. It's blue that has just a slight lean towards violet. The blue on the color wheel is orange, and so the direct complement is orange, but yellow orange will also desaturate the blue. It will begin to look a little bit more towards green. And then red orange will desaturate blue, and that gives a little bit, just a hint of violet. So since I'm leaning in this way, or I'm using this range for desaturation, I'm desaturating it with a red orange that lives about right in here. And that red orange, the tube color of that red orange, is the Rembrandt transparent oxide red. So that's what I'm using to desaturate with. All right, so now we're going to gradate hue. Keep the value the same. I say gradate hue, I mean we're going to gradate saturation. So I'm keeping the value the same. I'm going to gradate the saturation of this hue is what I meant to say. So we just get that same. Let this gradate. And keep it gradating. Keep it gradating. If you create a value line of your colors, such as I'm using here, it makes that gradating and keeping it the same value much easier, because if you line up your values, the same value, so these two are different hues but the same value, and these two are just a middle value of this, and these two are a lighter value of that. So that makes it easier then to keep that desaturation. So let's see, where are we going here? Oh yeah. So, and then I'm going to desaturate just straight hue for you. And we'll just get it up on here. So you see, you can do it with any set of complements. Now, to desaturate the hue, what I'm going to do here, to gradate the hue, what I'm going to do here is to pull some yellow from my palette down to right here. And I'm going to gradate this as hue, but keep it the same value. So watch this. You can go backwards and you can go back and forth with these three characteristics. And you can keep one the same and gradate the others all the way through. And then you can begin to sort of mix them up. So if now this is the gradating of hue, which I talked about earlier, but then jumped right there. So I'm starting here now. That is a slightly desaturated red-orange of a light value. It's about a half-tone 3 in value. So now I'm going to change the hue, but I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep the value the same, but I'm going to change the hue. And by changing the hue to a more saturated color, it's also going to change the saturation. So we're going to gradate here from this hue and saturation to another hue. The hues are all on the color wheel. It's the way the color wheel is arranged according to hue. And so you could just choose a hue that's beside one of the colors on the color wheel and move in that direction, which is sort of what I did. So I add a little bit more. Get that subtle gradation. Pull out all right, a little bit more. And here we go. So now I've graded the hue sort of like the spectrum gradates hue. Let's get that some pure yellow in that brush, and we'll put it right here. There we go. Just let it gradate. There we go. Now what we've done is we're in the light value range. We've gradated the hue from red-orange to yellow. And we've kept it, as I said, as a light value range. And the saturation also gradates a little bit. This is slightly desaturated, and it's becoming just a little bit more saturated as it moves towards yellow, because I have two colors here, yellow that's highly saturated, and the red-orange here that is slightly desaturated. So you see how that works. When you're thinking of color in terms of its characteristics, what makes it do what it does, then you can do these experiments, and you can find that in your own work, if you learn to observe color, a single color, as to its hue and the value of that hue and the saturation of that hue, it's going to open up the whole world of color for you. Give that a try. Practice going through all the hues and see what combinations you can come up with. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com, where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.